The auctioneer slammed the gavel down like a final sentence on a dead man's life, and the burned Ferrari rolled into the warehouse under flickering yellow lights, its blackened frame still smelling faintly of smoke and melted leather. People laughed quietly from the back rows when they saw it. The once glorious machine looked like a skeleton dragged from a firestorm, stripped of dignity and forgotten by the world. One headlight hung crooked like a broken eye. The windshield was shattered. The iconic Ferrari badge was half melted into the hood. To everyone there, it was scrap metal. A tragic luxury toy destroyed beyond repair. But to the tired single father standing silently in the last row with grease under his fingernails and a little girl holding his hand, it was something else entirely. It was a ghost from his past. It was the greatest thing he had ever built, and the greatest thing he had ever lost. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us what truly matters in life, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Ever Kind Stories for more emotional journeys that stay with you long after the video ends. Ethan Cole had not planned to attend the auction that night. Men like him did not belong in rooms filled with wealthy collectors wearing expensive watches and polished shoes. He came straight from work in oil-stained jeans and an old denim jacket that smelled like metal dust and engine fluid. His 6-year-old daughter Sophie sat beside him clutching a stuffed rabbit with one missing ear. The babysitter had cancelled, and Ethan couldn't leave her alone in their tiny apartment. Truthfully, he almost turned around when he saw the crowd gathering outside the luxury auction house downtown. But something in the newspaper listing had pulled him there. A burned Ferrari. Rare prototype model. Unknown history. Starting bid, $800. The moment the ruined car rolled onto the stage, Ethan's heart stopped. Even under the burn marks, he recognized the shape instantly. The custom aerodynamic side panels. The handcrafted vents near the rear quarter. The subtle modifications hidden beneath the frame. Details nobody else in the world would notice. Details only the creator could recognize. Years earlier, Ethan had been one of the brightest automotive engineers in Italy. He had worked long nights inside Ferrari's elite prototype division in Maranello, where innovation mattered more than sleep and perfection was expected like oxygen. He was not born rich. His father had been a mechanic in a small American garage, and Ethan spent his childhood covered in grease, dreaming of building something extraordinary one day. He earned scholarships, worked impossible hours, and eventually became part of a secret project designing what executives believed would become the future of Ferrari performance engineering. That car on the stage had been his masterpiece. He remembered every curve of it. He remembered the first time the engine roared alive beneath his trembling hands. He remembered believing his life was finally becoming something meaningful. And then he remembered losing everything. A corporate executive had stolen credit for key innovations in the project after a catastrophic testing accident injured one of the investors. Lawyers became involved. Blame spread through the company like poison. Ethan, young and powerless, became the easiest target. His reputation collapsed almost overnight. Contracts disappeared. Friends vanished. The company distanced itself from him publicly to protect shareholders. Within months, he lost his career, his marriage, and eventually even his home. His wife couldn't handle the endless financial pressure and heartbreak. She left when Sophie was barely a year old, leaving behind only silence and unpaid bills. For years Ethan survived by repairing engines at a rundown neighborhood garage in Chicago. Every morning he woke before sunrise, packed Sophie's school lunch, braided her hair as best he could with clumsy hands, and worked until his back ached so badly he could barely stand. Some nights he skipped meals so Sophie could have warm dinners. He stopped dreaming entirely. Life became survival. Quiet, exhausting survival. And now, somehow, his past stood burned and broken in front of him beneath auction lights. The auctioneer joked about the Ferrari's tragic condition, calling it a beautiful disaster. A few bidders laughed. One man offered $800 sarcastically just to entertain the room. Ethan lifted his hand. The room turned slightly toward him. 900. People smirked. Someone whispered that the mechanic in dirty clothes had lost his mind. Another bidder raised to 1,000. Ethan swallowed hard and looked down at Sophie. She stared at the ruined car with curious eyes. Then he raised his hand again. 1,200. That was nearly everything he had saved over 2 years. His rent money. Emergency money. The little security he had left. The bidding slowed because nobody truly wanted the wreck. Wealthy collectors came for flawless machines, not burned shells with no paperwork and uncertain history. Finally the auctioneer slammed the gavel. Sold. The crowd barely cared. But Ethan stood frozen as if the world had just handed him back a piece of his soul. Outside the warehouse, cold rain began falling across the city streets while the Ferrari was loaded onto a rusted tow truck. Sophie climbed into the passenger seat beside her father and asked why he looked like he wanted to cry. Ethan stared through the windshield for several seconds before answering. Because sometimes life gives people back things they thought were gone forever. The garage owner nearly exploded when Ethan brought the Ferrari into the shop the next morning. The vehicle looked hopeless. The interior was destroyed. Electrical systems were melted. Most of the body panels were warped from heat damage. Insurance records listed it as permanently unsalvageable after a mansion fire involving a wealthy collector overseas. But Ethan saw something nobody else saw. Possibility. Every night after work, while Sophie slept on an old couch beneath a blanket in the corner of the garage, Ethan stayed awake rebuilding the Ferrari piece by piece. His hands bled from sharp metal edges. He scavenged rare parts from junkyards and online listings. He skipped buying new clothes for himself. He sold his watch. He worked through fevers and migraines. Some nights exhaustion nearly crushed him, but every bolt tightened felt like reclaiming a forgotten part of his identity. As weeks turned into months, the dead Ferrari slowly began breathing again. Customers at the garage started staying late just to watch Ethan work. Neighbors brought coffee. Local mechanics stopped by in admiration. Nobody had ever seen devotion like it. Sophie became his tiny assistant, handing him tools with serious concentration and wiping grease from his forehead using paper towels twice her size. For the first time in years, Ethan smiled again. But healing old wounds is never simple. One rainy evening, a black luxury sedan pulled outside the garage. A sharply dressed man stepped out while expensive shoes splashed through puddles toward the entrance. Ethan recognized him instantly. Victor Morelli. The executive who destroyed his career. Older now. Grayer. But still carrying the same cold arrogance in his eyes. Victor walked slowly around the Ferrari in stunned silence. Then he looked at Ethan. Apparently, the burned prototype had resurfaced in collector circles online after someone posted photos of Ethan's restoration work. The story spread rapidly through automotive forums. People became fascinated by the mystery mechanic restoring a lost Ferrari prototype from ashes. Victor had come because he recognized the car too. And he wanted it back. He offered Ethan a check large enough to erase every debt in his life. Enough money for a house. Enough for Sophie's future. Enough to finally rest. But Ethan refused. Not because of pride. Because that Ferrari no longer represented success or wealth. It represented survival. Victor's expression darkened instantly. He warned Ethan about legal ownership complications and intellectual property claims. Threats disguised as professionalism. The same kind of pressure that ruined Ethan years before. For days afterward, fear consumed him. Lawyers could destroy him again. Powerful men always won eventually. Ethan barely slept. Old anxiety returned like a storm flooding through broken doors. Then something unexpected happened. A retired engineer from Ferrari contacted him after hearing the story online. Then another. And another. People who had stayed silent years ago finally began speaking publicly about what happened to Ethan. Former employees admitted Victor manipulated reports and shifted blame after the accident to save investors and protect himself. Automotive journalists picked up the story. Social media exploded with support for the single father rebuilding the car he once created. For the first time in his life, Ethan was no longer fighting alone. The final stage of restoration took almost another year. The night the Ferrari engine finally roared back to life, the sound echoed through the garage like thunder rolling across heaven itself. Mechanics stopped working. Customers applauded. Sophie covered her ears and laughed uncontrollably while Ethan sat behind the wheel trembling with tears streaming silently down his face. He had rebuilt more than a car. He had rebuilt himself. Soon afterward, a prestigious automotive exhibition invited Ethan to unveil the restored Ferrari publicly. Thousands attended. Cameras flashed everywhere as the black Ferrari rolled onto the stage gleaming beneath bright lights like a phoenix rising from ashes. But the moment that truly mattered happened afterward. A young boy approached Ethan near the display barriers while holding his mother's hand. The child wore leg braces and stared at the Ferrari with wide eyes. His mother quietly explained that her son dreamed of becoming an engineer one day but had been bullied constantly because of his disability. Ethan knelt beside the boy and placed the Ferrari keys gently into his hands for a moment. Then he told him something he wished someone had told him years earlier. That broken things are not worthless. Sometimes the world burns people down before they discover how strong they really are. That moment spread online faster than any photograph of the car itself. Months later, Ethan received offers from major automotive companies wanting him back in the industry. But he surprised everyone again. He declined most of them. Instead, he opened a small restoration workshop focused on training struggling young mechanics, single parents, and people rebuilding their lives after failure. He called it Second Mile Garage because he believed everyone deserved another chance after life knocked them down. The restored Ferrari remained in the center of the workshop, not hidden behind ropes or locked inside glass walls, but parked openly where people could touch it, study it, and remember its story. A reminder that ashes are not always the end. Sometimes they are the beginning. And every evening, after the garage closed and the city lights dimmed outside, Ethan and Sophie sat together beside the Ferrari in peaceful silence. No mansion. No luxury lifestyle. No revenge. Just a father who survived long enough to become whole again. And a little girl who never stopped believing in him. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like the video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to Everkind Stories. Your support helps keep these emotional stories alive and allows more people around the world to believe that hope, kindness, and second chances still exist.
If you believe in kindness, kindly please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to get all the notifications. If you like this story, so write a comment below and share with this your friends. Thank you so much for watching.